Hi golfers, Rob Cheney here from GOLFTEC Singapore. Today's video we're going to discuss the subject of flexibility and golf. Are you flexible enough to play golf? Well, I'm going to show you 3 things that you can do immediately that will make you move like you're 10 years younger and hit the ball better than ever before.
Swing. That was a good swing.
So like so many of my videos, the subject matter is covering things that I come across on a daily or weekly basis in the bay here at GOLFTEC Singapore. And this question comes up a lot, and it probably came up maybe 2 or 3 times this week, so it was in the forefront of my mind to discuss. It's one of those things that exists out there, the belief that you're not flexible enough to play golf. And to summarize very briefly, I would say that the reality is it's never really a lack of flexibility, more a lack of education on the part of the golfer, doesn't really know how to move, and unfortunately sometimes on the instructor who doesn't really understand how the swing works, how the body moves, and therefore cannot portray their instruction and their desire in how they want the student to move. And all of this creates a great deal of frustration, particularly on the student's part, who maybe doesn't see an improvement in their ball striking or their performance, and ultimately blames themselves for not being able to move properly. And as I say, it's very rarely is that the case. It's much more that lack of education rather than a lack of flexibility. And to that extent, there's even an entire industry that's born out of the fact that golfers need to be more flexible or fitter in order to be able to play. I don't necessarily agree with that in any great way. I think that golf fitness is extremely important for the best players in the world, and if you're trying to play this game at an elite level, then there's definitely some benefit to you getting stronger and fitter. But it's my experience that most golfers can move perfectly functionally if they know how to do that. And the reality is most people haven't got the time to find an hour in their week to practice their golf swing. So if you're going to tell them that they need to go to the gym 3 times a week and improve their flexibility and their strength before we can even discuss an improvement in their golf performance, that's both unrealistic and quite disheartening, I would think, on the part of the individual, thinking they've got to not only go to the gym to get fitter and stronger, they've then got to work on their swing. But there is some good news. If you know how to move properly, you can incorporate certain things into your setup and your swing that will increase your range of motion, theoretically increase your flexibility, make you feel like you're 10 years younger, and improve your ball striking immediately. So I promised you 3 things that you can do in order to increase your flexibility. So if you're someone who feels like you're losing some of that mobility in your swing, or maybe lost some distance, these 3 things you can incorporate immediately into your swing and should see an improvement in your ability to move better and ultimately strike the ball better and hit the ball further. So if we start at the beginning, the first thing I would tell you to do is I would tell you to take your feet and make sure you turn them out. Okay, foot flare is a subject that doesn't get a great deal of discussion. And a lot of the time I see golfers who have their feet turned in far too much at the setup. Foot flare can be described really as the internal and external rotation of the hip joint, and ultimately what that means is it determines how much range of motion you have throughout the swing. And in a summary, the more you turn your feet in, the more you're limiting that motion, and the more you turn the feet out, the easier it becomes for you to move both on the backswing and the follow through. I'd encourage you to try that immediately. Stand up wherever you're watching this video and just stand up with your feet more or less hip width apart and turn your toes forward so that your feet are straight, and just try to move your hips, and then go ahead and turn your feet 20 to 30 degrees out and try the same motion. And I would expect that you will find the latter to be much easier to do. So this increases your range of motion. It allows your body to continue to move very much within the range of motion that it's designed to do. You're not putting any excess stress on the joint. So that's immediately more turn for free. Once you've turned your feet out, and I would encourage you to turn both your feet out, there's some discussion that seems to be fairly common around the idea that you should turn the front foot out but not the back foot. I know that's how Hogan described it in his book. I'm going to tell you to start with turn both of them out 20 to 30 degrees and see how you get on with that, particularly the back foot actually, because as we move into point number 2 is going to be explaining how you must allow your knees to change flex on the backswing. That means as I swing back, my left knee is going to flex and my right knee is going to straighten. Having my feet turned out, both of my feet turned out, helps me to do this. And from a down the line point of view, you'll notice that as my knees change flex, some daylight appears between my legs and my hips are able to turn more degrees. It's interesting when golfers talk about having a lack of turn in their swing. That's quite a common complaint that I hear. I don't turn enough. And that golfer will sometimes present with lots of flexing arms and things to try and make the swing longer because they don't feel a turn is sufficient. I would tell you that you get a lot of the turn from not just the shoulders. You have to turn the hips, and to turn the hips you have to let the knees change flex. That's been a point of controversy in the golf swing training, golf teaching industry for a number of years. I think for the most part people are coming around to the idea, recognizing quite rightly that nobody's keeping their knees flexed through the backswing. We're really not trying to coil this upper body against the lower body. That would certainly reduce your degrees of freedom and make you less flexible. But there are still some people who tell you that this right leg or trail leg should remain flexed in the backswing. I would tell you to be very careful about listening to that advice because it certainly restricts, retards the movement in that joint, places excessive stress on other parts of the body because you're having to recruit that motion, that movement from somewhere else. So a golfer who doesn't change their knee flex, doesn't turn their hips sufficiently. If they don't turn their hips sufficiently, you can't turn your shoulders sufficiently. If you don't turn your shoulders or hips sufficiently, you get the extra length for your backswing from your arms and limbs flexing. And we've covered in many videos before why that's a problem. So point number 2, once you've turned your feet out, make sure you allow your knees to change flex in the backswing. Point number 3, the final point to help you with increased flexibility and to improve the ball striking and distance that you hit the ball, would be to consider the importance of the last part of the downswing. So when the shaft's parallel to the ground here, it's referred to as position 6 or P6. The best golfers in the world all have the club head just slightly inside or behind their hands. And there's a reason they do that. It's lots of benefits to swinging that way. Helps you swing slightly in to out, helps you to deliver greater speed to the ball. So if you look across a spectrum of or a catalogue of great golfers, regardless of who it is, and you stop their swing at P6, I'm going to tell you that at least 9 out of 10 of them and probably 10 out of 10 of them have got that club head on the line of their hands or just slightly inside. And that's desirable. That's something that you should strive for as well. A lot of players struggle with that move. Not really because of a lack of flexibility, or certainly not always because of a lack of flexibility. But what you can do in terms of your setup is you can begin the swing with your stance more closed. So pulling your right foot back, closing your knee stance line, closing your hip turn, will mean that for a golfer who in their regular swing would swing down and tend to see the club head outside the hands at P6, rather than trying to work hard on pulling that club head back in, which is really a combination of wrist and forearm work, which can be quite challenging. You can pull this foot back, close the hip position at the setup, and create more space here for you to swing in. Notice my knees are still changing flex, but as I come down towards the ball, I've got a greater chance because I've created this space for my club head and my shaft to be very slightly in at P6. And the benefits of that are tremendous, especially with the driver. Helps you to certainly swing much more into out, hit the ball out to the right, draw it back, create greater power and distance. So those would be my 3 things that you can do immediately to increase your flexibility, help you hit the ball better, and add distance that you may have lost in your game. So to summarize, are you flexible enough to play golf? I would say almost certainly yes. In my 25 years of teaching this game, I would say that 99% of people are able to move in the way I want them to, providing they understand and have explained to them how I want them to move, how the body needs to move, how the joints need to move. There is the odd exception, and you may fall into that category, but I would encourage you, strongly encourage you to try this first. If you're having issues and you've noticed a reduction in your mobility, a reduction in your distance that you're hitting the ball, adding these pieces back into your swing, or into your swing maybe for the first time, can increase your range of motion immediately and give you back those lost yards on the tee and on the course. Guys, please give that a try and let me know how you get on in the comments section. I'm keen to hear from anyone who thinks they've lost distance, whether they feel that's through their body changing and lack of flexibility. Anyone who's had some success with these drills or any other drills that's given them back their lost mobility, their lost distance, be incredibly useful for you to post those comments in the section down below, because other people are going to read those that can benefit from that as well. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please click that subscribe button. We're on the race to 20,000. I'm still trailing Jonathan and Nick by a few, so any extra clicks and any extra subscribers is a big help right now. We're in the race for getting to 20,000 subscribers. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon for another video.